All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're going way back to the 1950s, to a time of, well, you know those classic ads, right? The ones with those happy housewives. We're looking at one of those today, a Tide print ad, to be exact.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, actually. This is more than just a fun little nostalgia trip, though. We're going to break down just how this ad, how it worked, how it used these kind of clever techniques to sell us, well, not just laundry detergent, but also ideas about, what it meant to be a woman back then.
So it's like a cultural snapshot.
Exactly.
Okay, so just to set the scene, post-World War II, America, everything's booming, new technologies, new gadgets for the home, and like everything's promising to make life easier.
Right. And this is also a time when, you've got these shifting gender roles. I mean, think about it. During the war, women had taken on a lot of the jobs traditionally done by men. And now, well, society was encouraging them to go back to the home.
So this ad is reflecting that shift.
It's totally playing into it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the ad itself. So you've got this beautiful woman, and she's just beaming, and she's hugging this box of Tide. I mean, literally hugging it.
And there are hearts like floating around her head.
And the tagline is, well, it just says it all. Tide's got what women want.
It really does, right? Like they're saying Tide, it's the key to happiness if you're a woman, that is. And you know what's really interesting? They're using like all these visual cues, the hearts, her expression, to link Tide with like love and desire, those strong emotions. It's semiotics, classic advertising. They're trying to get you in your feelings, not just your, practical mind.
Not just, oh, I need clean clothes. It's deeper than that.
Exactly, exactly. And then there's that comic strip at the bottom, right? With the two women, they're just gushing over Tide and
Oh.
even throwing some shade at another brand.
So they're trying to create that sense of community, like all the cool housewives use Tide.
Totally. It's playing on that idea of social influence. Like, you know, women, they are influenced by their friends, what their neighbors are doing. It makes sense. And this actually ties into a communications theory. It's called the two-step flow theory. Basically, it says that trusted sources, friends, certain publications, well, they can really sway people's opinions.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So even back then, they knew how to play those social games.
Oh, yeah. And then there's the colors, right? They're so bright and the language is so playful. It's not just about, like, clean clothes. They're selling this idea of a brighter, more fulfilling life.
Thanks to Tide.
Exactly. It plays into this kind of aspiration that people had back then. It was like a time of, progress, excitement about the future. The ad implies that Tide, it's part of achieving that ideal life.
It's the secret ingredient.
Totally.
But let's get back to the woman in the ad. Like she's this image of the perfect housewife, beautiful, happy, just totally obsessed with laundry.
And this is where things get, well, a little more complex. The ad, I mean, it really reinforces this very specific idea about womanhood in the 1950s. It's like they're saying, this is what a woman should be. A woman's primary role, it's in the home.
And you know what? It makes you think about what's not there, right?
Mm.
There are no women working outside the home, no men sharing those chores. It's interesting.
Right. And this is important. This ad, I mean, it was presenting this very specific and really well idealized view of family life. And, a theorist named Stuart Hall, he talked about how media often, well, it reinforces these dominant ideologies, so the widely accepted beliefs of a particular time. So in this case, the ad's saying a woman's place, it's in the home, taking care of the family and, doing the laundry.
It's amazing how much you can really unpack from a single image, isn't it? It's like a window into a whole different time.
Absolutely. I mean, we're just getting started, actually. There's so much more to kind of delve into with this ad. So, we've talked about this, like the overall message, but let's get a little more granular. Who are they trying to reach, with this image, this happy housewife, her bright white laundry?
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're talking to a very specific kind of woman. Someone juggling a lot, probably.
You're right. Yeah, spot on. The target audience, I mean, it's pretty clearly lower middle class women, women with young families. They're the ones feeling the pressure, right? Keeping up appearances, making sure the home is spotless, the family is happy, all of that. So it's interesting because on one hand, it's this dream, this perfect life. But then on the other hand, it's playing on those anxieties that women might be feeling. Like, am I doing enough? Is my house clean enough? Are my kids happy? Absolutely. That's such a good point. It makes you think about like what was happening back then, the
Yeah.
Cold War, right? So you've got all this social pressure to conform, to fit in. You don't want to stand out, you don't want to be judged.
Right, and Tide, with its, the whitest whites, the brightest colors, it's like the solution to all that. It's almost like a symbol, of your success as a housewife.
It totally is. Yeah, like if you use Tide, you're showing everyone, hey, look, I'm a good wife, I'm a good mom, I'm doing things right. It's consumerism as like validation. You're not just buying a product, you're buying belonging.
Right, it's like a badge of honor almost.
Exactly.
And speaking of validation, there's that Good Housekeeping seal of approval. It's
Yeah.
right there on the ad.
Oh, yeah, that's smart. Really smart marketing. Remember we talked about that two-step flow? Well, back then, Good Housekeeping, that was like the authority for women, a trusted source, It's like getting a stamp of approval from, I don't know, like your favorite teacher or something.
Like, hey, if Good Housekeeping says it's good, it must be true. No wonder they were so convinced.
Exactly. It's subtle, but, I mean, it works.
But, we keep coming back to this, but this image, the perfect housewife, what about the women who didn't fit that mold? What about the women who, I don't know, they wanted more than just, being at home?
Right. It's a really important question. I mean, not every woman would have looked at this ad and been like, yeah, that's me. That's my dream. For a lot of women who wanted careers, who had aspirations outside the home, well, this ad might have felt, I don't know, limiting.
Even like invalidating in a way.
Right, exactly. Imagine seeing that and thinking, my dreams don't matter. Or even worse, my dreams are wrong.
And this is why, we do these deep dives, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so important to look at this stuff critically.
Yeah.
To understand that even something that seems, I don't know, harmless, like a laundry detergent ad, well, it can have these really powerful messages about who we are, who we're supposed to be.
Absolutely. It's all about media literacy, right? It's about recognizing those messages, understanding how they can affect us even when we don't realize it.
Okay, so before we move on, I want to go back to something, that little comic strip at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. The one with the two women, they're chatting about Tide.
Yeah, it seems like a small detail, but it's actually really, really smart.
Oh, it is. From like a marketing perspective, it's genius.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, it creates the sense of community. You're like eavesdropping on these two friends, and everyone loves a little gossip, right? But it's doing something else, too. It's normalizing Tide. It's like, everyone's using Tide, so, you should, too.
That's that peer pressure, right?
Exactly. And, we're social creatures, right? We want to fit in. We want to belong. And this ad, it's like, it's saying, this is what normal looks like. This is what you need to be part of the group.
It's so subtle, though.
Right. And it's interesting, too, because I mean, think about how different our relationship is with laundry today. I mean, back then, laundry was this huge chore.
Oh, yeah, it was a whole thing.
You'd be doing it by hand or with these old machines. It was like physically demanding. I mean, it was a big part of a woman's work at home,
Yeah, and a source of pride for a lot of women, but also a burden. I mean, today it's different, right? We've got these fancy machines, detergents that fight stains. You can even, like, pay someone else to do your laundry.
It's true. Now it's all about like the results. We still want clean clothes, of course, but no one really wants to spend hours and hours on it. Our priorities have shifted.
It makes you wonder, if they were to make this Tide ad today, what would it look like? I mean, would it still be like focused on the woman at home?
Yeah, it would definitely need a makeover, right, to connect with people today. I mean, maybe it would be like a busy working mom or a single dad juggling the laundry and the kids, or even a group of friends doing laundry together. Who knows?
And instead of like the whitest whites, it would probably be all about like sustainability, being eco-friendly, right?
Right. Absolutely. It would have to reflect the values that people care about today. But even if the specifics change, I bet the basic ideas, appealing to your emotions, creating that aspiration, that wouldn't change, because that's what advertising does. It offers these products as solutions to our problems.
So, okay, this 1950s Tide ad, it might seem like a relic of the past, but it's actually like, it's really relevant, right? It shows us how powerful media can be, how it shapes how we see the world, even today.
And it reminds us to be, critical, to question those messages we're getting all the time, and to understand, the agenda behind them.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive, the historical stuff, the marketing tricks, even like the role of laundry, how it's changed. But there's one more layer I think we need to explore.
Yeah. Let's think bigger picture for a second. What does this ad say about, like, the power of media, how it shapes our whole worldview?
It's wild. We've spent all this time on this one Tide ad, and it's amazing how much it reflects the hopes and dreams of the 1950s.
Seriously, it's like we open this little time capsule, but instead of, trinkets and photos, it's, well, laundry detergent and a whole way of life.
And what gets me is it's not just about selling Tide, right?
Yeah.
It's this bigger thing. It's selling a vision of what a good life looks like, what a successful life should be.
Exactly right. You've got the perfect housewife, the sparkling clean house, the bright white laundry. It's all like tied together, the key to the American dream, right?
It's like a recipe, right? Follow these steps, use this product, and you'll be happy. You'll have this perfect life.
That's the power of advertising, right? It gets you in your hopes and fears, and then it's like, boom, here's the solution. It's this product. Buy it.
But those messages, they can be so powerful, right? Like
Yeah.
shaping what we think is normal, what we should want, even if we don't realize it.
Think about it. I mean, it wasn't just this one ad. I mean, back in the 50s, you had all these ads, movies, TV shows. They were all saying the same things, like this echo chamber where these ideas that just become so normal, they feel like, well, common sense.
Like this is just how things are.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be, well, media literate, to know how to question those messages, to see them for what they are, like stories, stories made to sell us stuff.
To recognize that media, I mean, it's not just entertainment, right? It's powerful.
Yeah.
It can really change how we think, what we believe, even how we act.
And it can be a force for good, right? Or for bad. I mean, it can push for positive change, or it can reinforce, all these harmful stereotypes. We've got to be aware of what we're taking in, think critically about it.
So the next time you're, scrolling through your phone, watching a movie, even just looking at an ad on the street, stop for a second. Ask yourself, what am I seeing here? Who made this? What are they trying to get me to do?
Those questions, they can really help you become a more aware media consumer, which, I mean, so important today with all the information overload and everything.
Well, listeners, this is it. The end of our deep dive into this, well, honestly, fascinating 1950s Tide ad. Hope you've enjoyed this little trip back in time. We certainly have.
It's been fun. Who knew we could get so much out of this, this old ad?
And remember, even the most, normal, everyday things, they can have these amazing stories to tell. And those stories, well, they can teach us so much about ourselves and the world, really.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep thinking critically. And until next time, happy decoding.